So, welcome everyone to the Aeronautical Engineering Industry Hour. I'm so excited for today's session. I think I might be excited more than some of the students because when it comes to aviation, aeronautical engineering, aerospace, whatever it may be, I might be considered a geek. So, I am happy to have all our panelists here, which I will introduce in a little bit. But first, to start off, I do want to start with a little slideshow, and it will be very short because, again, I want to get to the panelists and all the information that they hold for all of us. So let me get started on that. All right. So industry hours. So as you already know, this is for aeronautical engineering. If you are currently undeclared and trying to figure out your major, you are in the right place. If you are currently an aeronautical engineering student, welcome. You're just going to get more information about the major you're already interested in. Went too fast. So the agenda for today. I'm going to briefly go over some information about CCPD, or Center for Career and Professional Development. Then we're going to interview our professional panel by the School of Engineering Hub. That will be by myself, Kim Loring. And then we'll open up for any questions if we have time at the end. So CCPD, our PI loves their acronyms. So of course, that's what you're going to hear me refer to it as, but it is the Center for Career and Professional Development. So who are these two lovely ladies? So Emily and Kristen are the career counselors that help the School of Engineering specifically when it comes to co-ops, internships, jobs. So they're the counselors you want to see in regards to anything career based. Similar to like academics where I would be helping you, they would be helping you, like I said, in that career aspect. So what are the resources? What can you do with them? So first, I personally always like to talk about their appointments. So just like us in the hub, they have appointments that you can see them for. So that includes major career exploration, developing maybe your resume, interview prep, applying for grad school, applying for jobs, your LinkedIn, social media. They also have a closet in case you don't have professional attire and you need it for interviews. So if you do have questions regarding that, definitely reach out to them. They also have drop-in hours 1 to 3, Monday through Friday. So even if you don't have an appointment, you have a quick question, something's come up and you just need more information, they are available and there for you. Additional resources, Handshake. So what's Handshake? It's pretty much another application that you can use, but it's where prospective organizations that are posting internships, co-ops, jobs, they'll post it on there. So you'll be able to see it, the requirements, any questions regarding the job, it's right there. And you can always talk about that with, again, the career counselor. So you definitely have a lot of resources. Also, I want to point out one more thing, headshots, professional headshots. If you need one, whether it's LinkedIn, just to have, definitely go to them. But like I said, any questions regarding your career jobs, internships, co-ops, what to do, how to prepare, internship fairs, and job fairs, definitely talk to them and schedule that appointment. So I just put down a bunch of companies that you might know that you could get jobs at. Some people currently on the panel may be working at some of these. So if you're trying to figure out where you could possibly work, these could be some of the places. This is not all of them. This is just a general idea, but it's some pretty big companies. So, like I said, I'm here for the industry hour panelists. I know you guys are. So that's the end of my presentation. Let's get to it and learn more about these panelists. So wonderful. So I'm actually going to start with Cassie. So Cassie, take it away.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Cassie Smith. I am a 2020 aeronautical engineering graduate. I am originally from the great state of New Jersey, and I now live in Los Angeles, California. So it is still like light out for me here. Um, and I currently work for NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. And I'm working on Mars sample return as a mechatronics engineer, combining some mechanical and some electronic work to solve the problem of the sample recovery helicopters. I'm super excited to talk to you guys today. So if you have any questions about work, about finishing up at RPI, being a cool alumni and getting to talk to people, or doing your master's, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Cassie. Dice, tell us about yourself.
All right, good evening, guys. Dice Saito, aeronautical engineering graduate 2021. Currently working out of Philadelphia with Leonardo Helicopters, formerly Augusta Westland Philadelphia Corporation. I'm actually from Jersey as well, from North Jersey. Um, but I mainly work in flight test. So I work in the AW609 tilt rotor flight test department as a flight data analyst and mainly working on data analytics, processing, planning, that kind of thing. Excited to be here. Feel free to ask any questions you have.
Wonderful. And Jacob,
Everyone, I'm Jacob. I am currently a senior dual major in aeronautical and mechanical engineering. And on the aero side, I'm on the space track. I am from downstate New York in Rockland County, but currently living in beautiful Troy, New York. So I might not have as much industry experience as Dice and Cassie, but any more coursework and academic questions, I'm a little bit closer to it by a couple years.
hey, still important and relevant information you got there, Jacob. So, that being said, Christy, let's hear about you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I'm also a mechanical and aeronautical dual. I'm a senior, so I'm graduating this year, planning to stay for co-term next year and get my master's. My work experience, I have had 3 internships so far at RPI. My first being in mechanical, the second being in flight test for F-18 at NAVAIR, and currently over the summer worked at NASA Michoud Assembly Facility for Boeing as a design engineer, and I'm continuing that now remotely through the school year.
Wow, that sounds like a large workload for you, Christy, especially continuing it on while you're finishing up your senior year. So, going into the first question for everyone on the panel, what made you decide to be an aeronautical engineer? And then, did you pursue any dual degrees or minors while doing so? Cassie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't know about anyone else, but for me, it was all the movies and all the talk about Apollo, Apollo 11, Interstellar was a big, a big part of my decision to choose aeronautical engineering once I was in RPI when I think Interstellar, I'd been accepted and Interstellar came out. And I was like, yep, that's the engineering I want to do. For sure, I'm going to do some space stuff. But it was mostly the movies and also the Mars rovers. I grew up with Curiosity and Spirit, like roaming the Earth, and I was, or the Mars, and I was like, that is so cool. How did they get there? I need to be part of that. And so that really set my sights towards aeronautical engineering, which is like space.
Funnily enough, similar for me, but I have a big passion for anything that goes fast or anything that makes me question my life, particularly helicopters. You know, these little flying things that try to shake itself apart, and somehow, somewhere, some engineer decided to kind of put it all together. So that's a very similar passion. Uh, I personally at RPI just was straight tried and true aeronautical engineering. I in fact studied mainly fixed wing with a slight concentration in rockets. Was interesting enough. My coursework for AERO. Anything outside of that in terms of Haas or electives, I was actually looking at economics, psychology, and computer science. But never got a minor or anything, so it doesn't really mean much.
So my answer is not going to be too different. I too have just always been amazed by anything that could fly. The fact that we can get a fairly large, very heavy rocket not only off the ground but into space is just incredible, and I wanted to learn more about it. But also, and this is my mom's favorite reason, it gives me some bragging rights to be able to say it really is rocket science.
Oh, for
Uh,
me as well, I think it's pretty cool to know that the amount of information you can discover is pretty unlimited when it comes to space or pretty much anything that flies. And so I just thought it was pretty cool to not ever be able to reach a limit.
That's so interesting, Christy, that you bring up just not like always being challenged essentially and having the ability to continuously learn. And I feel like everyone on this panel has that urge to learn and to figure out. Now, I'm not like Dice over there trying to question my life in a helicopter, but I can understand. So this next question is for Cassie and Dice. So can you tell us about a typical day, what it looks like for you guys, and what do you consider your favorite part of the job?
Yes, and I'll also say I did not do a minor or a dual. I forgot to answer that before. It's just aeronautical with the focus in space, like Jacob. But a typical day, I say that I design, test, and build spacecraft. And every day for me is like summer camp when I walk on to our JPL campus. It's like a campus lab situation. It's kind of unique in that sense. And I'm like, every day I'm like, what am I going to do today? And it can be very different if you're testing, I'm designing in CAD, if I'm actually building what I designed or building some other stuff, running testing or assembling it. So I try to hit all three in my specific role and job. So every day, like right now I'm in a design phase where it's a lot of Excel or CAD or MATLAB and meetings. But then earlier this year, I was on a team that was testing nearly every day up in a thermal vacuum chamber, and I was still using Excel and MATLAB and CAD, but also the chamber.
All right. For me, my day usually starts with meetings. So Leonardo is actually one of the few companies I've realized that has a strong, large corporation in outside of the U.S. So it's actually so the company is owned by Italians. So I actually have gone to Italy numerous times for that part. But we usually have an overlap in the morning, so we start off with meetings. Uh, so usually my day starts with a coffee, some complaining about coming in early due to the weather, and then straight into meetings and flight testing if weather permits. Overall, my role itself, it's a lot of we're at the whims of the weather. Sometimes we can't fly, sometimes we can. Sometimes operations can't let us go, sometimes they can. So it's a very adaptive workflow. So I don't really get to say much about, what do I get to work on? It's, well, what the day lets me.
I mean, at least you know what to anticipate in the morning when you just wake up. You know you can enjoy that coffee while you're in the meeting. But that's awesome that you got to go to Italy a bunch of times. I'm very jealous personally. Um, Again, this next question is for Cassie and Dice. Many students often ask about the type of work engineers do, specifically meaning is your position hands-on or more desk oriented and analytical? And then can you tell us which category you feel yours falls under?
Yeah, it's a very valid question. And I'd say that you can choose what you want to do. If you want to be the one that's hands-on building, testing, out in the field, running experiments and things, that's the career and the path that you'll kind of go on. And it depends on the company, but I think most times people look for that, or if they want to, then your boss will work with you and kind of find you that role. And if you want to do more of the design, I want to be writing a little bit of code to help with my design, or in these meetings where we're more analytical and desk oriented, but still problem solving on the whiteboard, then that's kind of the role that you can also go into. And I'd say at JPL, the reason though I really like my job is that I can do all of it just in different phases, right? So I'm in design right now. Eventually, once we finish the design, I'm going to actually have to get it built and build it and then test it. And so I would say some aeronautical jobs you can do all of it, and you can kind of specialize into which one you'd like to do.
I almost agree with that. So my role, I'm a flight data analyst, so you can guess where what my job is, right? I look at numbers and squiggle lines on time histories and figure out what they're doing. My job is very much a desk oriented. We'll most of the time I'm at my desk just puzzling through numbers. But sometimes, you will get the opportunity to say, hey, let's go work on something new. All right, we have an issue with the fleet. Let's figure it out. And you'll go to the aircraft. Leonardo here, it's very interesting because the flight line and the production line is like right there. Like I can walk out of this room, give me 5 minutes, I'll be down on the flight line where all the mechanics, technicians, quality control, they're all, working on it by hands. And, a lot of those people are also engineers. And so you got a very diverse opportunities, especially in the aeronautics industry. So, it could be whatever you make it. And I think I agree with Cassie's statement very much.
It's always interesting to hear reality versus what people might think an industry would be, because I've heard varying stories, and I'm sure other students have as well, about whether it was just a desk job or it was more in the field. But you guys are great examples of it varies, and it truly matters what job you are going for, also what company, as Cassie stated earlier. So this next question is for everyone. So welcome back, guys, Christy and Jacob. You're bringing it back into the conversation. What does or did your undergraduate experience look like? Did you do internships, join professional groups, any extracurricular activities? And do you have any recommendations for students to join anything specifically?
I'm happy to kick us off. I was part of the RPI Pep Band. If you don't know what this is, I highly recommend you go to a hockey game or a football game. Our band is there. They are awesome. They will brave the elements. We went on many road trips for football games that were very, very cold in the dead of November. So I loved being part of the band. I met a lot of people that weren't in my major, that I didn't have classes with, that I got to connect with and grow and expand my network. And that's who I lived with my last many years. That's who I still connect with and hang out with when we're all in town. So the pep band. And I was also a tour guide. So I got to meet with prospective students and share about all the cool things we get to do. And so that kept me very, very busy. And I will say that sometimes I think people feel like they have to join a academic or a professional extracurricular in order to get hired or in order to like spruce up your resume. And I would just say, do what you want to do. If you want to join the Rocket Club, if you want to join the Comp Sci Club, absolutely do it because it'll be super fun. But if you want to also just join the Cheese Club that I think is still there, join that. Do what you want to do, right? Like make it your own. But my best advice is get involved, join a club, join a bunch of them, pick them, figure it out, and then pick maybe your top two and stick with those.
Yeah, honestly, summed it pretty well there, Cassie. Myself, I was part of Design Build Fly. Go join it. Shameless plug right there. Those guys are great. And that's a really hands-on aircraft building club. Every year there's a competition, so we were doing that. Personally, I joined a lot of clubs freshman year. DBF was the only one that really stood out to me as one I wanted to continue. So personally, I was doing aircraft building, that kind of thing through like all 4 years. In terms of like internships, I only had one. I was writing autopilot, auto throttle code for Cessnas. Um, the 2 month thing, but it really is how you make of it, because for the longest time, I never got internships, so I was trying to find something to do outside of school. And so, a lot of employers I've realized when I was, trying to get hired, they really like to see the human aspect of it, the personal side. What are your hobbies? What are your passions? What makes a tick? And sometimes, that could be as simple as bread baking. Myself, I did that. And sometimes it's really, societies like you have professional societies, even Greek life, all of those, as long as you can speak on it and be passionate and then be able to give them a grasp of who you really are, I think you're fine.
So Cassie and Dice kind of stole my punchline on the whole joining non-academic clubs. But in terms of extracurriculars, first, I'm also a tour guide, so I get to give tours to all the prospective students and go on webinars and panels at open houses. I'm also the captain of RP Ambulance, so while it's very easy to see the pep band, the only way to see us is calling 911. So I really hope that doesn't happen for you. Uh, but we're basically an on-campus ambulance that goes to any medical emergencies on campus. And joining an organization such as that, where it's in no way part of my major, has definitely exposed me to people in all different areas. I've met computer science students, pre-med students, biomedical engineering students, electrical engineers. So that really has expanded my personal um, repertoire of what I'm into and has given me a few new hobbies. Someone just got me into radios recently. So it really does help to make you a more well-rounded engineer by doing something that's completely not engineering at all. As far as internships go, I did 2 internships in mechanical engineering at a company, Lutron Electronics, where I was on the tool and test team. So we design and build custom tools to make our products. And I'm currently working on applying for some internships in the aero field at NavAir. I feel like there was one other part of the question that I'm forgetting. Yes. Aside from those internships, though, I have also been able to get some pseudo industry experience in some classes at RPI, such as Space Vehicle Design with Dr. Anderson, where we are taking a scaled down version of a real NASA mission and trying to design our own approach to it.
Right, so like everyone said, I also tried to find a balance between picking extracurriculars that are, you know, academic based, but also ones that are like more personal. So during my time here, I became a student pilot. I started it when COVID was still kind of a thing, so I kind of just did it on my own with someone who used to run Flying Club, right outside like Albany Airport. There's a private airport there. I'm still working on it, so my goal is to have that done within the year. I also did research, but it was for NASA Glenn, but it was chemical engineering research, which was like super out of my comfort zone, but it really allowed me to get like a new perspective on some other projects. So if you think that you'll come here and you'll be limited to your major, like that's totally not true. And it really helped me like talk about that in interviews, and like it looked great on my resume to have some diversity. As far as more personal, I joined Alpha Phi, which is a sorority here on campus. It kind of helped me navigate the ratio a little bit because AERO is a pretty male-dominated field, so it was nice to have some of my girlfriends around to help me through studying and all the projects and work that we have.
Wow, that's awesome. And I love that you guys mentioned non-engineering based programs because people put way too much pressure on themselves to always be in the engineer mindset. Um, and as first year advisors, our goal is to obviously try to tell students to create a balance. Not everyone listens. But mental health and making sure you have the ability to take a step back does have its advantages. So thank you guys for all those recommendations. Is there a cheese club still? That is my question. I don't know if anyone else knows. I'm not aware of it. I don't
The
know if we'll,
wine, yeah, the wine and cheese club, it still exists today.
so So you know what? Anyone that wants to join a club, just go there. Of age, of course. Not not trying to promote anything that I'm not supposed to. But we will go on to the next question. So I have it for Cassie and Dice. Some students express hesitation about declaring aeronautical engineering as a major because they have concerns about securing a job as an aeronautical engineer graduate. Can you give us a perspective on the current job market, what you guys had to deal with, that sort of thing?
You know, I remember this exact dilemma when I was a first year student. A lot of my friends having the same question and choosing to add the mechanical dual to kind of open them up to maybe more job options. But I did not. And I will say that we all have jobs now, you know, and people are happy in their placements. I'd say it's really what you want to do, you know. And I actually answered this question. I was recruiting last week, and it's like from the recruiter standpoint, someone asked me kind of a similar thing. They're like, oh, well, I'm a mechanical engineer, or I'm an aero engineer. And I was like, we all have to take statics, we all have to take dynamics. You know, if you have a specialty, some people have a minor in comp sci, right? And it's really what you're interested in, is what I would say you can best pick, and then go with that interest, and that will help you in the job market.
Yeah, that's exactly it. From a different standpoint, so we're gonna take a step into the helicopter industry for a second here. So this year, the Army chose the V-280 tilt rotor as their next generation of a utility helicopter. That's created a lot of jobs for Bell Helicopters, the manufacturer there. That's also kind of shaken up the waters a little bit because their competitors are all of a sudden trying to catch on to more contracts. So there's a lot of jobs out there. You have urban air mobility, so multi-rotored, eVTOL companies coming up. My former hiring manager actually went to the UK for a job. He was like, "Hey, I'm done with this company. I'm gonna go to the UK and go work for these guys." And so it's really all over the place. But honestly, I've met some of the best engineers here, and you know, they are better aeronautical engineers than some of the people I've graduated with, and they have degrees in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. So it really is how you apply yourself. So you could be a mechanical engineer and work in aviation. You can be an aeronautical engineer and you can actually work in, F1, Formula One, vehicle, automotive, Navy, submarines. I mean, those are flying through fluids, right? So it's really how you perceive what you want to do and how you apply yourself. And honestly, if you really want to know what kind of jobs are out there, I would suggest you go into LinkedIn. What are some other like Fishbowl, all these different professional you know job sites, and just search up aeronautical engineer and see what the job descriptions are to see if it's really right for you. That's what I would say.
That's a great point. I just wanted to throw in that I work with a RPI alum from 20 years ago, and he did aeronautical engineering, and he is our best solar array and power designer. Right. And so it's cool to see that we both took like similar classes in the similar disciplines, and I'm doing more mechanical design, and he does power, and he's like the best at it. So you can choose.
And
Yeah.
just to follow up on both, oh, sorry, Dice, did you want to go?
Yeah, I just wanted to interject. There's also operations. That's something completely different. But aeronautical operations is probably one of the biggest fields you can join as an aeronautical engineer. So I actually joined this company as a accident investigation specialist. So I was looking at crash sites, which could be a little bit morbid, uh, but it does take one to do it. But it's a lot of operations knowledge, and I think that's a big field that a lot of engineers don't think about. Um, and having the skills to put to that, would be great. But yeah, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I kind of had a follow-up for both of you. It's just because you guys started talking about other areas of engineering, and students do have in their mindset that they're only going to be working with aeronautical engineers. There's no overlap, when in fact there tends to be overlap with obviously mechanical, there's materials, there's electrical, there might be computer systems, comp sci. Um, you kind of touched on it and said like you already did, like been with them, but what does your teams look like? Do you guys have all these different types of positions involved together?
Yes. So for like a spacecraft, you'll learn in space vehicle design if you take it, but there are like sometimes 8 disciplines to make a spacecraft happen. And you need at least one person from each of those disciplines to actually design a spacecraft. And that kind of way, it's a very diverse field. So you need people from different backgrounds to come together and make this happen. So you have thermal, you have mechanical, you have power. There's so many. But it's the way I work is like I'm in a mechanical engineering group, and we get like honed out to a project that needs mechanical engineers. So I'll work with maybe 2 or 3 others, but then I mostly interact with our systems engineers. As Dice was just saying, like systems is a big thing, operations. I'll work with our power people, our thermal people, even the other like software people. They also have mechanical questions, and we all kind of work together on one project.
Yeah, that's definitely it. I mean, I think RPI is one of the I wouldn't say few nowadays, but it was definitely one of the schools that really harps on, coordinated efforts amongst people with different disciplines. So as from a flight test perspective, what I'm doing now, we have, analysis. So, me and my boss, you have execution. So we have two mechanicals, um, a lot of ops efforts, like people who have, actual certifications and just work fixing cars. Someone down on the flight line, he just tunes cars for fun. He actually races them too, so it's actually pretty cool. He'll bring it in every now and then. But that's really flight test. It's like a very broad operations organization, as a and it's a smaller portion of the larger organization, which is the AW 609 tilt rotor certification program. And that just opens up cans of worms right there. I mean, FAA certification is a big aspect that I never really learned about at RPI. It's one that potential future engineers should look into. You have this one governing body that really sets the tone for what you get to work on in the future, right? So we have certification engineers. We just do requirements analysis. So very systems engineering. We'll have a broad range of people like system safety engineers. My close friend is a system safety engineer. His training is in electrical, uh, but he spends his days looking at wiring diagrams and risk analysis and all these different documentation. Uh, but his training's in electrical, so once again we'll go back to it. It really is how you apply yourself. There's all these roles that I've never really thought of. That oh, this is a discipline that's been in the field for 50 years. Like, what? Why did I hear about this before? This is cool. So yeah, it's very broad, I would say.
Thank you both. That was very insightful and very good information. So we're going to go back to the whole group. So last month, or about a month and a half ago, we had a career fair. Can you tell the students how maybe they should be presenting themselves, what they should be worried about essentially when going to those sessions? And how can they prepare for those recruiters? And I know, Cassie, you just mentioned you went to a recruiting event, so you probably have a really good insight on what to expect.
Yes. So I got to recruit at SWE, the Society of Women Engineers conference that was last week. It was in Los Angeles, so we had a big JPL showing. But I got to meet some RPI students, which I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. I can read your resume and I know all the classes and everything you're talking about. But I would say in general, if you could go to the CCPD, because they will make your resume look absolutely stunning for the next career fair, because there's probably one in the spring, I assume. You can keep looking for those internships and jobs and all throughout your future, for many years to come. But I would say really keep your resume to one page. I never realized, like as a student, they always tell you that, and I'm like, whatever, whatever. But as a recruiter, sometimes I had to take a picture, and they're like, oh, flip it over now. And I was like, but your name's not on the back. And I didn't realize like how important that was to be like, just make it one page on the front. That way I don't have to worry about flipping it over. I know whose name it is, and all the info is just right there. And then my other tip is that some people will write like, oh, I have CAD experience. And then in person, they'll name like the CAD softwares that they've used, right? Like SolidWorks, NX, CATIA, whatever it is. But I want to know specifically what the software is on the resume. And if any companies ever do any filtering and if they automatically search for just SolidWorks, not CAD, your resume would get discarded because it's not on there. So I would be specific about the softwares and the program that you know. Those are my tips. That's what I learned literally last week. So that's fresh information.
I definitely agree with all of those. Luckily for me, I had mine on one page, mainly because I didn't really do much starting off. But I still have a job, so whatever. One of the biggest points I would make is really try to use action verbs. Those are really nice to have. And in fact, I was actually part of the hiring process for one of our coworkers now. She joined a couple months ago, and one of the big things I actually kind of caught on to our top candidates was, one of them was really just looking to move. to a new city, right? And the other one, who was the one that got offered, was really passionate about the program, about the projects that we were working on. She actually did the homework and came in and said, "Hey, your aircraft is cool. Like, I want to see more of it." And so that's one thing that stuck with me, going into it. She interviewed on a Friday. I was a bit miffed that I had to come in on Friday. I could have worked from home that day, but here I was. Um, but the fact that she started talking about some of the details that not many people know about helicopters and starts asking questions about how we get around it, how we design it, that really stuck with me. While, the other engineer was like, "Oh, I want to move to Philly. I'm interested in this industry," but really didn't kind of show any drive to know what we worked on. And so having that background information is going to get you really far. Um, Now, caveat, she was speaking to engineers who actually worked on it. If you're talking to a recruiter and you start asking questions about, all these parts and how it works, they're going to be like, "I no idea what you're talking about." Just remember that. The other point I would suggest everyone really should do, even throughout your entire career, is keep your resumes updated, but also when you apply, try to tweak your resume to match the job you're going for, right? And it takes some legwork and it takes some, effort. I hate that word, effort. But I would suggest, you look into what they're at looking for and try to figure out how you can best present yourself. Um, that's probably a really good point on for cover letters and resumes. Or sorry, cover letters, my bad. Resumes, not so much. It's pretty good overall, just brief, right, on who you are. But definitely cover letters. If you have the opportunity to provide one, have a tuned one. Give them something that you legitimately want to convey to them in a letter, and it'll go a long way.
So I'll keep mine fairly brief since I've actually not been to a career fair at RPI. They always seem to fall on days that I have exams. But I can share a couple things that I've picked up from interviewing for internships and some tips that I've gotten from my internship supervisor after she was at a recruiting event. I'll say is if you know you really want to talk to a certain company, read up and learn a little bit about that company beforehand, and then you can speak to those points when you're with the recruiter. Additionally, it's going to sound cliche, but dress professionally. You can't make that second first impression. And the third point is going to sound fairly funny, but make sure that you know what's on your resume. I heard a story from my supervisor where she asked somebody about a point on the resume, and they had no idea what she was talking about. So if you put something down, make sure that you remember what it is and know what you're talking about when if it does come up.
Hi. So I actually have secured two of my internships through career fair or another professional event at RPI. The first being actually through a virtual career fair that was my sophomore spring. It was for that summer, so it was like I thought I was cutting it a bit close, but you can still get things for the summer at the spring career fair. That was now there. And it was super nerve-wracking for me to be online and doing sort of like an interview. I thought, that I connect much better with people in person. Um, but I was able to get that experience the next year, which was last fall. Boeing had an EHI event, which is an accelerated hiring event. So they had come to the union separately than the career fair, and I went there, and it was a really quick process. I got to speak to one of them for about 10 minutes, and then the next day I had gotten called for an interview, and then the day after that got an offer. So it was a really, really quick turnaround. And then after that, I got to match, and that's when they had matched me with NASA Michoud, and I got put at that location. Um, so I think it's really important, like everyone said, to know what company you're going for, but also like to be confident, which might sound a little cliche, but if the recruiter can see that you're confident and you know exactly what you want, or you know exactly what you at least want to learn or want to experience, they'll remember you a lot better and a lot more clearly than someone who seems unsure. And while it can be like nerve-wracking to go speak to recruiters, especially when you're looking for a job position, it's just really important to own all of your experiences and just, know exactly what you did and honestly like have fun with the whole conversation because they're also looking for some personality too.
Those are all really great pointers. And I do think, Jacob, I know you said you think it's common sense about the professional attire, and sometimes it's not, unfortunately, but we all know everyone listening on here will definitely be dressing professional. Um, but thank you everyone for sharing those. We do find, especially with first year students, a lot of them think that it's useless to go that first year. Because why would I go? Because I'm only in Calc 1 and Physics 1 and Chem and maybe IEA, but I'm struggling in IEA, so why would anyone want to talk to me? Um, and we always tell students, you need to get out there, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, start talking to the recruiters now, because also those recruiters might be coming back and remember you. So it's always a good idea to always just try, put in the effort, even if you go for a half hour and you're burnt out after, you went and you showed up. Um, and half the battle is showing up. So thank you again for all that. So for all of you again, based off your experience, are there any course electives such as economics, management, programming that would help strengthen a candidate's background while searching for opportunities?
I think that's a great question. I feel like it really depends on what you want to do and what you're interested in, right? I don't want to say like, oh, economics or management, because then you show that interest. But if you're not actually interested in it, don't force yourself. Like I took 2 economics classes and I thought, oh, I could minor in this. And then I'd have an economics minor, and that's pretty cool. And then I didn't take those classes. And instead I took different Haas courses where I took the science or the history of science and technology, which has served me way more actually, because I get to have conversations with my coworkers where I'm like, did you know that language is considered a technology? I get to talk about the science behind that. And we have deeper conversations than if I was like, well, I did study economics with an extra 2 classes, so it's what you're interested in. If you want to do management, if you want to do computer science and programming, add it in there. If not, do your course curriculum, take, the MATLAB course for engineers if that's what's best for you, or the programming course, whatever you're interested in, just take those.
Yeah, that's absolutely right from my perspective as well. Now I could give a little bit of background. So for my company, a lot of our teams are around 5 to 6 people, so smaller scale. I do know that, my hiring manager that disappeared into the UK, he now has a team of 50 personnel that he manages. And, it can vary. And so in fact, I myself am interested in management. So this year I actually joined the Pennsylvania National Guard. Um, what other organization in the world lets a dumb 24-year-old manage 40 people as an officer? And so that's kind of my perspective is, I'll get some hands-on experience, start learning about management, personnel, and some of the aspects that come with it, in hopes that I would, get the lead on to my other passions, which are management, operations, that kind of interest. So it can really vary. Computer science, I took computer science 1 instead of the intro to engineering programming or whatever class. I took psychology. I took a lot of psych classes. Took a couple economics, so it really varies. Um, but at the end of the day, right, it's really what you want to do. If you want to be that genius engineer, has a PhD, knows how to make this one specific bearing that is critical to the mission, you know, do that, right? Now, if you want to be more management, systems engineering, that kind of thing, go pursue it. Go find classes that really highlight the skills you might need to know, right, at the very beginning.
So I have found that there are several Haas pathways that really do come back and strengthen you as an engineer, but also make you think a little bit different as an engineer. For my HOS pathway, I did DIS, so I was learning more of the humanities-based design track, and that actually helped me to get an internship in engineering because at my interview, they asked me to design a product for them. And they really wanted me to just be surface level so we can get into stress strain curves and talk about the mechanics of the product. But bring in the humanities-based design, I was able to talk more to design aspect and say, well, I want to give it some extra features and incorporate these aspects and make sure that I have these signifiers and constraints built into it. And they were impressed by that fact that I came in with that background, and that led to the interview going in a completely different direction. And we spent quite a bit of time going down the more design track rather than the engineering and mechanics track that they intended on. So I think it sort of threw them off guard by the background experience that I brought in. But it doesn't have to be in the humanities side. I'm sure you all know that as an engineer, you take Calc 1, Calc 2, multivariable calculus, and differential equations. I'm a math nerd. I wanted to take a 4,000 level math. I looked in the catalog and saw numerical computing. That sounds interesting. I wanted to learn MATLAB. This will be a fun class. And I signed up for it. And it turned into one of my favorite classes that I've taken. And did I get the best grade in it? No, but I learned a lot, and it's actually turned out to help me in engineering a lot more than I anticipated that it would. And it has made my future engineering courses quite a bit easier for me and has just helped me to understand the concepts better. So I know Cassie and Dice both mentioned it, but if a class sounds interesting, just take it, and it will honestly probably help you in the future more than you think it will.
All right, so I'd like to speak to something that is not technical at all and not engineering based, but still something you can do here that will help you gain leadership experience, which is important when talking to recruiters. So being that I'm a dual with mechanical and aero, I don't have any electives to take, so I couldn't go and take any other courses that weren't available but seemed interesting. With that being said, I do have a music minor, and for one of my classes, I decided to do an independent study with a professor who I had previously had. And we went out into the community, and I picked a site called Unity House. And they do a lot of work for the community, and they have different services for people who are going through domestic violence. And so there, I decided to set up a safe sound space, which is basically there. I'll be teaching music classes, and Troy Music Hall is also going to come in and teach music classes. So I was able to go out into the community and collect a lot of donations for instruments and books. And with that being said, like, although it's not engineering, when you're able to lead a group of people in anything, it does help you gain experience working with people who are from very diverse backgrounds. And you also, I mean, you get to learn while also teaching, and you kind of get to see what your style of working and learning is, as well as discover other people's styles and just decide how you best fit in and work in a group that's not in really under a deadline or under like, oh, we have to get a certain grade kind of classroom setting.
I have a follow-up question regarding that one. Was there a favorite class outside of engineering maybe, or even inside of engineering that you guys had maybe that you didn't anticipate? Um, so feel free, Cassie, if you want to start.
Something I did I did like a super senior year because I did a co-op before the Arch was a thing. So I stayed for an extra fall in 2020, and I did it fully remotely. And so I kind of had to pick a couple classes to fill me in to a full-time student. And so because I just had to take one HOS, and I think I had to take aeroelasticity. And so I ended up taking digital filmmaking because it was COVID times, and I was home with my sister, and she always likes editing. And I was like, oh, this would be a cool thing for she and I to do together this semester. And I never would have taken it if these circumstances weren't that case. And it was actually really fascinating. And I got to meet a whole different industry of people like at JPL and new professors, and have this cool experience where I'm like, oh, I kind of understand a little bit about filmography now and cinematography. And I got to watch movies with my parents. And it was like a really cool, not what I expected. But I also took FEA as like an extra technical elective that I just had extra time, so I added it, and I had Professor Day, and it was the coolest class because I got to just, it was very hard to learn about basically structural analysis and how to do it and how to use the NX software and Nastra and everything. But it was really cool that I just got to have that additional opportunity to take a technical and a non-technical class.
Cassie, real quick, FEA, what does that stand for those of us that don't know?
Finite element analysis. Is that the name of the class, or does everyone know? That's the name of it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sometimes we call it FEM too, like finite element modeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many acronyms, so I'm like, I need to make sure we all know because that's a more advanced class that most people here haven't really heard about. So thank you for clarifying that. Dice, I don't know if it looked like you were shaking your head, so I'm gonna let it go to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a huge FEA, FEM nerd senior year. I was doing that all the time. But so I have two classes that I've really looked back on and say, man, I was so glad I took. So the soft science slash, more non-technical. I took the anarchism class by Dr. Bill Puka. That's I don't know if they offer it anymore. But that course really taught me a lot of political science, political engineering, and those kind of skill sets that look towards analyzing people, right, and how society works. Uh, Lo and behold, I was on a panel, as a think tank, almost mentality. We're just discussing future, potential products that we could sell to, government, civil, and so that I brought that in and I said, hey, there's a huge organization that looks into air ambulances, and so I kind of talked on how that kind of political engineering worked out for that industry, and so it really impressed a lot of people, and they've actually asked me to continue to work on that little group internally. So like who knew studying anarchism would get me kudos with the VP? Like it's great. But from a more technical aspect, I took CS1 over Intro to Engineering Programming. I use Python almost every day now, and I have extensive libraries. I'm a bit of a CS nerd now, but I never thought it would really amount to anything. I just thought maybe it's a good background to know Python instead of MATLAB, and now it's a cornerstone of the tools I use today. So it varies.
That I'm not
Jacob,
sure that I necessarily took too many classes I didn't anticipate taking, but what I didn't expect to do was be a TA for a couple courses. So I'm a TA for Introduction to Engineering Graphics and CAD, as well as engineering processes. And I hadn't counted on doing that when I came to RPI, but I'm very glad that I did. It has both helped me to develop my own CAD and machining skills further, as well as keeping them sharp. And when I'm at an internship, it has made it a lot easier for me to be able to pick up whatever CAD software we're using there, since I have a wider understanding of the fundamentals of CAD. And then when I'm designing mechanical parts, having some solid machining skills as a background makes it a lot easier to know what's possible and say, I can't design a sharp corner like that because there's no way to make that. So you sort of have a little bit of a wider understanding of how to make parts.
Along the same lines as Jacob, I was a TA for engineering processes, which is like a machines class. So they had a lot of mills and lathes, and you can weld, and that was really interesting to me when I took the course. So I decided to kind of help out the next year and be a TA. I did not know that it would help me so much when I got to my internship this past summer, but working at a rocket factory and working inside of the rocket, like it was for Artemis too. I got to see like all of these machines, but on a like much bigger scale, which was so cool that I like can picture what was going on, and I knew what they were saying and what that meant. And because I took a tour of that factory like 10 times throughout the summer, and each time it was completely different just because of how many things are going on at once over there. But to be able to kind of have some insight previously, although it was on a much, much bigger scale and we were building like a tiny train instead of a rocket, it was still pretty cool to understand some mechanisms.
Thank you. That you guys gave a lot of good information that I wouldn't have anticipated either, but all those classes made sense. I think I'm most surprised by Dice's though. I'm very happy for you that it worked out that way. I'm not sure if we still have the course at RPI, but if so, maybe some students now want to take it. Um, but I will move on to our next question, which is kind of going the opposite direction. So, what course or courses did you find most challenging at RPI? And what were your tactics or resources that you used to take advantage of to find that success?
I really liked aerodynamics, but it is a very high level class. And I took it with Professor Keith Taylor. Shout out, he's my favorite professor of all time. I recommend him for FDL fluid dynamics lab as well. You know, love Keith Taylor. But the best way I got through that class, I actually read the textbook for that one because it helped just like re-explain the concepts in a different way than he explained it. And it was just like, oh, okay, it made connections make a little bit more sense. And then I went to his office hours twice a week. I was just like, hi, can I ask some questions? This is before Chat GPT, where I could be like, can you explain this like in a different way? So I had to read the textbook and I had to go to his office hours. But maybe try that. I don't know. That's new.
Who would have known that Chat GPT would help college students, right? So personally, hardest class was probably thermal fluids, 1 and 2. I had a lot of trouble. I struggled through those classes. It says a lot because I'm not in the aerodynamics, thermal fluids department. Um, but the biggest thing I was doing to get through that was to, even if there wasn't an exam, I would go look at back exams and look at the questions and use them as like almost like side homework problems. So I spent a lot of time going through potential questions and just running through them. I'd get it wrong. I have no idea why, and I would take it to a TA or even the professor and I'd say, hey, I've tried it like this, didn't work. I looked through the textbook, couldn't really find anything. Can you explain this? And honestly, professors are not mean people for the most part. If you show effort, show the effort and the interest, they're more than happy to help you out. And they're people too. So I would suggest back exams. Just doing problems and professors.
It's a little bit funny that the classes that I found the most challenging have turned out to be some of the favorite courses that I've taken here. Um, Specifically comes to mind, I know I mentioned numerical computing with Dr. Banks earlier as that extra math class I took. Definitely didn't make it easy, but I loved that class and I probably learned more in that I learned in most of my other engineering courses. Additionally, spaceflight mechanics with Dr. Singh, who recently took it over. Again, I got off to a rocky start, and there were a few days where I just didn't really know what was going on. But that was a course of going to office hours for the professor, TA, really working on the homework, any extra questions he would post, working on those. He would post all of his lecture notes, going back and reworking all of the examples just to try and see the material again and try to do it myself and really cement that understanding in my head. And that course actually had a culminating project which focused on self-learning and pick a topic, anything that you're interested in beyond the scope we cover in class, go out, learn more about it, do some work on your own, write a report. And that's really what made the class my favorite, where I just had this freedom to pick whatever I wanted and go and learn about it. And have RPI giving me the opportunity to learn on my own, which sounds something that shouldn't need the opportunity for and should just I can do whatever I want in my free time, go and learn. But being able to get a grade for doing something on my own was just very interesting and different and fun for me.
I think although it was a bit of a class I took a little bit earlier on, strengths of materials was my hardest class here. For that, I utilized office hours. I also utilized ALAC, which is sort of like a tutoring program that RPI has, and I was able to be assigned a tutor that was one-on-one, and we would just meet at the union and kind of go over more practice problems, and that really, like, it helped me kind of zero in on what I had to learn and what I didn't know versus what I knew. And it also helped me gain confidence because that course was, at the time, people were just kind of scary with it, and they were saying, oh, how hard it was and how much they struggled, and that can kind of overwhelm you sometimes. So it was nice to just have someone there to be able to motivate me as well. And later on, I became an ALAC tutor for fluid mechanics.
Wow, so you all so you guys struggled, you're telling me, at RPI. That is totally unheard of. Um, but it's always nice for students to hear that they're not the only ones. So I appreciate you guys sharing all that. All those courses sound hard to me. Um, but that's why you guys are the engineers and I'm just here to guide. So I'm going to guide you guys into the next question. Do you have any additional advice for students that want to become aeronautical engineers?
This is like my best general advice I find for RPI students in particular is to, oh, I guess two things. For AEROs in particular, I think, you know, we were all kind of saying about our tough classes was we had to learn how to study and kind of learn how to approach a hard class, right? Whether that's ALAC, you know, extra tutoring, looking at back exams, looking at example problems, reading the textbook, whatever your method is, I think RPI kind of like makes you learn that. Whatever helps you learn, rewriting your notes, looking over the examples again. If lectures are recorded, rewatching or re-listening to certain segments. You know, finding exams online or Quizlet. I think sometimes I would use and be like, let me flip through some flashcards. So finding the method that helps you study and helps you learn. That's kind of like a main takeaway that you want to bring with you for the rest of your career, for the rest of whatever higher education you go into, because that's how you learn and that's what works for you. And the other general piece of advice, this one applies to all RPI students, but especially for AEROs, is to learn to advocate for yourself, because starting now and in your career, no one else really will. You know, like this is when you get to be your own person, your own independent self. And so if you need something, help on a homework, you know, you're like, I need help on this class project, or I can't make this class project, this meeting because I have too much going on. Ask for help and then advocate for yourself. Find the support where you need it and just keep going until it works for you.
You know, I'm glad you said self-advocate because I'm a big proponent of that. I tell that to my teammates. Some people, you know, we're getting a new hire, uh, internally hiring a new analyst, and he's never done any of this stuff. And I was like, hey, I'm going to give you reports that we've written. You need to tell me what you don't understand because I can't think for you. I don't know what you know, right? So speak up. You know, everyone is going through. You know, RPI is not an easy school. You know, it's very difficult to get into and also to get through. So you know, speak up. You know, there's no shame in it. You know, even the professors might, you know, for a second be like, "Why is this kid talking to me?" And then you kind of explain your situation. And they go, "Oh, okay, he doesn't get, or he or she doesn't get." Um, you know what the prompt is. So self advocacy, big one. You know, for me, and it's one that I've really got to firsthand see was resiliency. You know, bouncing back from something that bad grade, you know, something bad happened, getting back up, getting back into it. It's funny because I had to have a drill sergeant at boot camp screaming at my face to really nail into my skull that you know that's a skill that I gained at RPI. You know, I've gotten terrible grades. I mean, the first test for space flight mechanics, I got close to I got a failing grade. I got like a 30 to a 40%. Um, Now I wasn't the only one. In fact, the majority of the class failed that test. But at the time, you know, we don't know the grades, that we don't know the curve. So I saw a big fat F on my page and I went, what am I doing here? Like I'm 1 year out of graduating. and I might not get to graduate because the courses that I've selected are way too hard for me to finish. But I kind of trudged through that, got through the class. I got a B plus in that class. Honestly, that's probably my most proudest grade I've ever gotten in the time at RPI. So I would suggest self resiliency. Understand your limits, but also know that limits are made to be broken. You can do it. Like everyone's doing it. So can you.
So I'm going to go more on the point of you just have to be honest with yourself on when you are having trouble and when you need some extra help. Freshman year, I was stuck in my ways coming out of high school. I got good grades in high school, and I thought this will be easy. I'll just keep doing the same thing. And freshman year was a challenge. To get grades that I was happy with, it was way more work than I ever anticipated. And I was stuck in my ways. I was like, no, I can do this. I don't need help. And I refused to go to office hours. And it really took until sophomore year for me to say, you know what? It's okay to go to office hours and tell the professor, I don't get this. Can you go over it again? Can we do a practice problem? And you have to be willing to tell yourself, yeah, it's okay to go to office hours. There's no shame in it. They're not going to go and tell my friends, oh, Jacob didn't get it. He needed me to help him with this more. And I guarantee you walk into office hours and you're going to have three friends sitting in there who don't get it either. And then just to mention something that Dice was talking about a little bit, if you get back an exam and that your grade is not good, or you walk out an exam and it was really a struggle, you have to know the fact that you had trouble with it means you're probably not the only one. I'm sure half the other people in the room are feeling the exact same way, and the other half are feeling even worse. So the fact that exam doesn't go well, it's not the end of the world. It didn't go well for other people either, and there's going to be another exam. But if you get it back and you really aren't happy with how it went, go to office hours, and the professor will figure it out with you.
Right, along those same lines, I think, yeah, it's super important to not give up on yourself. And just because, like, you may not understand a concept the first time or the second time or the third time doesn't mean that you're never going to understand it, or doesn't mean that you're going to get a bad grade in the whole course just because you did bad on one test. So I think it's really important to kind of look out for yourself and also know when you need a break. Because sometimes it's just a concept is not going to come to you in one night. So you might have to take breaks, you might have to take multiple days on it, but I found myself like at sometimes like scheduled down to like the minute of things that I had to do during the day. And it's just really important to kind of set some time aside for yourself.
One last point, let me interject. Just to give everyone a grasp of who I am, I was the dumb kid who sat on the front row and kept on falling asleep. Uh, so if I could get through it, you guys can get through it. You guys are great.
I love the positivity. I love it all. And you guys already kind of answered the other question of what you would tell yourself as like a first year college student. So I'm going to skip that and jump right into questions if you guys are okay with that. Does anyone have anything to add before I go into that next section? No? Okay. Julius, I think you had some questions.
So a couple of questions. One is, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, just about dual degrees, minors, concentrations, focuses, things like that. Um, what do you tell people that are interested in doing all of those things all together at once?
I would say take it easy. You know, let's first let's get through, maybe this semester or this first year as a first year student. Like pick a major, get into that, or, undeclared engineering, but then decide on your major, get through that, see how that goes, join a club, and then see what's next, whether that's a dual or a minor, because you can always add those things, you know. Um, yeah, I would just say take a minute. Let's figure this out first.
That was my response initially when you said you want to do all of them. I was, personally, I was like, okay, uh, I kind of did that, but that was with clubs. I joined every single club that piqued my interest. I had my entire 5-day schedule lined up. this day I go to this club, this day I go to this club. Didn't work out like that. But from a standpoint of, choosing minors, and all these others, I would, one thing is you should be interested in it first. And this is gonna sound a bit mean, but I've realized that having a minor doesn't really mean much if you're looking for a job. It means a lot if it speaks on your hobbies and your personality, but just having a minor isn't going to get you anywhere. So if you're thinking, "Oh, let me get a psych minor and the economics minor," if you're not passionate about it, it's going to drag you down more quickly than doing a minor or even a double, a dual major of information content that you're actually interested in. So just as Cassie said, take a step back, think about it, and if you're really passionate about it, I mean, this one's on you, right?
I'll add to this that just because you are interested in a topic, you can take classes without having it on your degree. I was, as a sophomore, looking through the course catalog and thinking, well, I'm an EMS and a public health minor. That sounds interesting to me. And I went and talked to my advisor, and he looked at my degree works and told me, so that you don't have any of the prerequisites for any of those classes. If you want to get that minor, you'd either have to overload on credits every semester or do an extra semester of classes, neither of which I wanted to do. And he suggested to me that I could take classes in that area without actually getting the minor. And as an already dual major in mechanical and aero engineering, a public health minor isn't going to do much for me in the job search. But I was able to just take those classes because they sounded cool, and as Dice said, it speaks to a hobby of mine. And then I didn't have to go over on credits.
Yeah, I think as well that it it's pretty important to kind of just narrow down what your interests are. I think for me too, I kind of came in here and I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna do everything. I feel like still I kind of have that mentality, which like is sometimes great, but sometimes yeah, it can be a lot at once. So I think it's just important to kind of know that you can do the things that you want to do without joining clubs. Like if you love cheese, you can also love cheese like without being in the club, things like that. So I think it's important to know what, prioritize your interests and see what kind of commitment you can give first.
All right, thanks everybody. Another question came in. Based on what you know now, based on your experience now, would you change anything about what you did at RPI?
I like this question a lot because I always say how grateful I am for RPI because it got me here. So in that sense, no, I wouldn't change a thing. But if I could, maybe I would tell myself in my freshman year, like, don't worry, it'll all work out. Like, believe in yourself, right? Just follow the path. You don't have to do, right? Because I think even freshman year, I was like, I could do an economics minor. It's like, just just follow the path. And I didn't have to, and I didn't need to, and I didn't want to at the end of it, right? So I'm grateful that I went through all that, even the hardships, even the struggles. These are my best friends are from RPI, and it got me where I am now.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that. Absolutely not. I mean, the person I am at today is because of the experiences I had through my entire life. I mean, changing that is basically saying I don't like who I am now, and I think I'm pretty good. So I'd say no, not really. I think everything went as it should have gone.
I also have no regrets about the last 3.25 years. Um, what would I do? I'd probably stay another year or two to take more classes and be involved in clubs for a bit longer, which I'm doing by staying for a fifth year master's. But honestly, I would say for 4 more years just to take all of the other classes that I see in the catalog every year. I'm like, that sounds fun. I would want to take that.
As far as changing things in a general sense, no. However, I think if I were to go back and I could tell myself like to not worry about the grades so much, and that like recruiters like if they do point out a bad grade on your like report, that like you can just kind of explain and just like talk about it, and it's honestly like not going to make or break anything. So I think that would have put me at a little bit more ease when I was studying, because it kind of just drags you down if you're too nervous to even learn anything.
All right, last question. Well, I think we'll let you go after this one. Cassie, I think you mentioned it earlier. So, and everybody, feel free to jump in as well. In a world where things like ChatGPT exists, gives a lot of people opportunities to take shortcuts here and there. What's your general advice? How do you use it? How do you utilize it? And how do you keep yourself from not becoming the best engineer that you could?
It's a great question. It's actually something that we talk about at JPL just amongst coworkers and friends, but even we had like a lab-wide meeting about like some of the ethics behind it too, right? Which was another topic. But I think the way I use it, and my boss and how like my boss and I have been working together for 3 years, so we get along very, very well. And it's a way to supplement your education, right? So I was working on a mass properties component of some parts I was designing, and my boss and I were like, with like, ooh, do you remember principal axis and like what that means? And I was like, nope. But ChatGPT can scroll through Google much faster than I can. And I can keep asking questions of, explain that in a different way, one more time. But I would say it's not great when you're like, so I have x equals 35.2, and why is this? And can you do this calculation? Because it can't do it. I also think it's okay, but it gets you like 80% of the way there, right? Like it's not 100%. So whatever you're using it for, like I use some Excel where I'm like, hey, how would I write this in Excel? Right? No data into it, but just like how would I format it? Because that's not my job. I don't need to know how to do that. I just need to get the data out of it. But even then, it's like 80% accurate. It gets you 80% of the way there, and you still have to be like, okay, and how would I problem solve this? But I would say it's also more worthwhile to like learn things yourself, and also that way you know it's correct. I wouldn't trust everything ChatGPT tells you. Trust but verify is a phrase we use a lot at JPL. So trust but verify for yourself.
It's actually interesting. So when I joined this company, I was in accident investigations. Um, AI has no idea how helicopters crash, unfortunately, or fortunately. If we knew it, we could solve it, and we'd have no helicopter crashes, right? But unfortunately, the role I took on when I joined this company was a lot of parsing through nuances, weather, personnel, what that person's habits are. There's a lot of factors in the actual investigations that I was part of. Can't speak too much on each one because it's technically kind of regulated, and that actually segues into my other point. As engineers, we have access to intellectual property. Um, I have access to performance data for our aircraft that we can give you general information. Oh, the helicopter can fly X amount of knots, but we cannot tell you, what the power rating of certain things are or how it affects it, how we design it. And ChatGPT is a software that is open-ended, right? All the data you put into it is going to a machine learning AI to read it, understand it, and parse it to the next person. So once you start putting in technical information, that's going out there. And at this company, we've had a huge brief on what we can and can't do, especially since we're starting to work on military programs. You cannot be leaking that kind of thing, especially to open source, open-ended software. That's a big no-no. So it could be fun. I make it write poems about my friends. It's hilarious, but I don't use it at work.
I mean, I think I'm the boring one in the room who hasn't actually used ChatGPT, but I do know several people who have. And I can tell you, at least from the academia standpoint, if you can't do the work yourself, ChatGPT can't do it for you. In that numerical computing course that I took, we were learning some high level math top concepts and then implementing them in MATLAB. And there was a rule in the class that we were not allowed to use the symbolic toolbox ever. And I know several people who couldn't figure out how to write a script, and they would ask ChatGPT, how can I implement a Taylor series in MATLAB? And the answer is, the first line is use Sims. Next question to ChatGPT, how can I do a Taylor series in MATLAB without using the symbolic toolbox? The answer is, don't use Sims. So if you can't figure it out, it's not going to figure it out for you. I also know that Dice mentioned putting in confidential information into it. When I was working at my company Lutron, we had a whole policy as well on what you can and can't do with ChatGPT. And especially in the tooling department that I was in, all of our tools are a trade secret. So if they get leaked, then the company's not going to be happy since we're losing all of our protection. So we weren't allowed to use ChatGPT for anything technical or anything work related. What we were explicitly allowed to use it for was making memes. So it's great at that, but anything technical or math or physics engineering, it's not going to quite do it.
Right. I agree with that standpoint of absolutely not at jobs, absolutely not at work, whether or not you hold clearance. I mean, if you do hold clearance, I do hold clearance, like you won't even have the option because like that's wouldn't even be something you could access um at work. But as far as school wise, I mean I use it when I'm studying from textbooks. So I will literally just copy a sentence that uses too many sophisticated terms that I don't yet understand, or the terms that I'm trying to understand. I'll paste it into ChatGPT, and then the next line I'll say dumb it down, like just like that. And then it's like, okay, like this means this means this, and there's that. And I'm like, okay, like now I understand exactly what that sentence means. I'll go back and I will study it the way the textbook has it written, and like from that I can kind of go back to square one and learn everything.
Wow. Those are some good questions. I appreciate everyone that asked those questions. And I've personally never used what is it? Chat something? I don't even know what it's called at this point. So that just tells you. But when you guys said memes and making poems about friends, I might actually look into it now. But that concludes our session for today. I do want to thank all of our panelists for taking time out of their schedules for being here. You guys provided so much insight for the students, and I know it's going to be very useful in the future. It will be recorded for anyone needing it, but it'll be a great reference for us to use in the future. So thank you again for everyone for being here. Thank you to all our guests on here as well. And Bulos, thank you for being here from the Hub. I appreciate your time as well. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. And if you have any questions about aeronautical engineering at RPI, please reach out to me. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.